Hello, my name's Christopher Naylor, and this is the Sirens of Audio.
One day, you will subscribe. Yes, you will subscribe. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just click the notification bell and write us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and the audio medium. From Launceston, Tasmania, I'm Dwayne.
And from Sydney, Australia, New South Wales, I'm Philip. G'day Dwayne, g'day audiophiles.
G'day Philip. So, New South Wales comes before Australia, does it?
I don't know, I got
Of course
confused.
it does. It was called New South Wales before Australia. So
I wasn't expecting you to do that. You threw me totally.
Sorry. It's what I'm doing these days, isn't it?
Oh, throw me, I don't mind. Throw me.
Today is going to be one of those episodes that we like to call...
We've got Randomoids.
Yes, it is Randomoids time again, Philip. And do you recall what the TARDIS cookie jar drew for us last time? This was a an audience pick. And what was it?
Well, I hope it was Classic Doctor's New Monsters, Volume 2. Otherwise, I've listened to the wrong thing.
Well, I can regretfully inform you, Philip. No, it's not regretfully.
No, it's not regretfully.
It was Classic Doctor's New Monsters Volume 2 and chosen for us by Roddy McDougall, who went into the TARDIS cookie jar with that choice. And the last time we asked for audience suggestions, Roddy McDougall chose Classic Monsters New Doctors Volume 1. It wasn't that long ago, actually. It was only about 9 months ago. So how did you go listening to this set? Did you enjoy it?
I must admit, I was glad to go back to it. Because, I loved the first box set. And I hadn't thought the second box set was as good, but now I've listened to it again, I've changed my mind. Because I really, really enjoyed these stories.
Well, we're going to have an interesting contrast today because...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not so pleased with this box set, but I want to tell you why. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of each individual story.
You can tell me why you're wrong soon. That's okay.
Okay, I will do that. Absolutely. I want to ask you, we're not going to jump down the rabbit hole because this topic is related to the stories that we're going to talk about. But I want to ask you the question. Well, we've got classic Doctors. In the new series, we've got new monsters, but are there any classic monsters? We've got the old classics in the classic series like Daleks, Cybermen, Sontarans, all that kind of jazz. Is there a monster that really stands out in the new series iconically like Daleks, Cybermen, etc.?
Yes.
Apart from the Weeping Angels.
Well, no, how can you say apart from?
Well, there you go. There's only one, isn't there?
Well, that is the most obvious one, the Weeping Angel. Is there any other recurring monsters aside from the Weeping Angels? So we have New Earth come back a couple of times, but so you've got Lady Cassandra, but I don't think you'd put her into the same sort of classic monster category. So
what makes a classic memorable monster?
Oh, well, no, that's different. Sorry. Oh, actually, that's a good question. Because do you count a one-off monster as in that sort of category? Because something like the Crinoids or the Robots of Death, I think, are the most amazing monsters, but they're one-offs.
Yes. Yep.
So I don't put them in the same sort of league as Daleks, Sontarans, Cybermen, Ice Warriors. I think you have to be recurring. What was your question? Do we have any what? Classic
The original
monsters?
question was, do we have iconic classic monsters that have been created since the new series came back, specifically to the new series? There is a major difference, I guess, with the new series because they've been able to go back to the classic series and draw classic monsters from there, whereas the classic series didn't have that. They started from scratch. But even then, look at the 70s. Even though there was 5 Dalek serials in the 70s, 5 serials in 10 years, it wasn't very many. They didn't overuse those classic monsters, and they certainly didn't overuse the Cybermen in the 70s. So, yeah, I guess the question is, there's Bingo. We can't have a show without Bingo.
I went on mute, I was a bit slow.
Got to leave it in now, otherwise no one will know what I'm talking about. So what was I saying? Bingo's thrown me right off.
You're saying, I'm just trying to work out what your definition of a classic monster is, because we have, in terms of iconic monsters of the new series, yes, I mean, Weeping Angels is the most obvious recurring one. I think the Scarecrows, in terms of, they're pretty iconic and terrifying, that whole scene. Sort
But
of
they weren't created for the new series.
Oh, okay. Mr. Pedantic. What about the Vashta Narada or the Silence?
I think the Silence is probably up there with the Weeping Angels as one of the scariest, I think. Vashta Narada, that's something I'm going to talk about in this set, because I don't think there's much to the Vashta Narada.
Okay. I think you're being very hard, Brain.
You think so?
See, you've got the clockwork creatures. I mean, the werewolf in Tooth and Claw is pretty scary. Once again, not a lot of...
It's a werewolf, though. It's not a monster that's been created specifically for Doctor Who. Whereas the Weeping Angels, for instance, are specifically for the Doctor Who universe.
Yep, clockwork soldier. What about the clockwork men in Under the Bed?
Yeah,
Go to the fireplace.
Yeah. They don't have kids in the playground walking around, imitating them.
Where's My Mummy? The Gus Mask Child. The kids used to imitate that.
That was a good one.
Are You My Mummy?
You My Mummy? Yep, very good.
So I'm sure there's more than that.
But when you get to the end of that story, it's not actually a monster as such.
No, I mean, everything's a lot more high concept. I mean, all the creatures are more high concept. So I mean, I think the first real alien you get to in the new series will be the Slitheen, and of course they're not actually a monster; they're a family. It's the family Slitheen from Raxacolicopholopatorius. Or you look at the Jadoon, and I think there's a lot more nuance. Daleks and Cybermen and Ice Warriors are they're monsters here to conquer you.
Black and white, so to speak.
Yeah, they're just here to conquer the Earth and take over. And as much as you talk about, we can talk about the history of
the Ice Warriors were a bit more. Ice Warriors were a bit more nuanced.
Oh, yeah, maybe, but maybe. I mean, I think we read a lot of stuff back into them, and we read a lot of history back into them, and the novels have given us a lot of backstory. But really, I mean, Ice Warriors and Seeds of Death, they're just parading around invaders. They're not really that complex of characters. They get a bit more complex in Peladon, because suddenly they're not the baddie, they're the goodies. But it's all done as a trick there for you. So I think new series villains are more complex. So the Jadoon aren't bad; they're technically police, but they're prepared to have an entire group of people suffocate to death for justice. So I think you look at there's a lot more nuance in the new series, which, as I said, it depends how you want to define monsters. But there's still some amazing classic scenes. Autumn's, it's Autumn's again too. So that's old series used brilliantly well. So the new series certainly dives into the history and uses those classic monsters, and then a lot of new ones it creates are more nuanced. Pigs in space.
That's right.
Is that a bad? It's not bad. You don't say it's a bad thing, are you? You're just saying it's just different.
I'm just saying that there's nothing to me that really stands out, apart from potentially the Weeping Angels, but we still don't really know a great deal about the Weeping Angels all these years later. They're still a bit of a mystery, although that could be a good thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot more storytelling there than if you want to. I mean, I think Russell T and Stephen Moffat both like fans to create their own backstories, and I think they like leaving a lot of space for you to put the backstory in of the monster that you like. So I think that's once again a deliberate choice those showrunners have made that other writers haven't made for us.
Okay.
But I mean,
Excellent.
as I say, it's much more nuanced, and especially once you get to Torchwood, you get even more nuanced in terms of the aliens that are there, and especially the Children of Earth monster. I mean, that's a concept that no Doctor Who show would ever do, but it was just an amazing alien creature, and just really bizarre. what their intention is and what their desires are, because it's not just about invasion for them. It's, so I think so much more nuance in the new series, which I do enjoy, but it is different.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, on that note, why don't we throw in a trailer for the box set, and then we'll be back in a second to dive into the individual stories.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions. Classic Doctors, New Monsters, Series 2.
I see only darkness.
Darkness?
She thinks they were eaten by the dark.
There is a species I know of that matches that description. They're called the Vashta Narada.
Yes, they know that name.
The what?
Vashta Narada.
Is anyone still alive out there? I picked up your distress call, and I promise I mean no harm.
This plan of yours was foolish. There is still no sign.
So you keep saying.
Doctor?
Guest! No, get away from me! Empress, I am warning you.
Warn away, my little man. Consider this a taste of what's to come.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
What? You're surely not going to...
You three have answered guilty to the charge of Creman acceptance.
We are, after all, witches.
What's happening? They're glowing.
What was and yet shall be. I and my mother set free.
Well, there's someone here, a Time Lord, calls himself a doctor?
I can handle the doctor myself.
All the emergency systems that should kick in have been locked off in these sections. We're isolated from the main hub.
Turn around, very slowly. What's that behind you on the glass?
It is my shadow.
Cast by what?
The glass! If the Vashta Narada are past the primary and secondary shielding...
They're almost here.
There's something on the other side. It's like they're trying to get in.
Big Finish. We love stories.
All right. So, Philip, I want you to tell me, actually, before we get into everything individually, I would like to say what I love about this box set. I love everyone involved with it. Barnaby Edwards, who directs, is amazing. Scott Hancock, Matt Fitton, John Dorney. Who was the other writer?
Simon Gurrier.
Simon Gurrier. All fantastic writers. The sound design was great. It was a less frequently used sound designer, but the music was by Howard Carter. So all these creatives are absolutely fantastic. But there are some negatives that I personally have with the concept of the box set. But let's start off with Night of the Vashta Narada, which is a Fourth Doctor story written by John Dorney. And, well, I've been talking about knowing our monsters. This gives us a bit of a backstory about the Vashta Narada, doesn't it?
It does, but it's not a very different backstory to what we already had on the Library Planet, which is the Vashta Narada are microscopic piranhas of the air who usually feast on dead meats and carrion, but when their environment is destroyed, they need to find other food sources. So in terms of in the library, they start move towards humans, and in this case, the fun world, very much a similar concept. It's destroyed the entire planet, all the trees, and the Vashta Narada end up having a taste for human blood. So it is, it has similarities.
Is it the same planet?
No.
Different planet.
Different planet. Because one of the things that we do know about the Vashta Narada is they exist on all planets. Wherever there's life, there's Vashta Narada. But they're never usually a threat to human beings because there's always plenty of other food sources, and I think in my head they're kind of like the sharks of the land. The sharks go around vacuum cleaning up all the ocean floor and all the dead fish and cleaning up all the mess and all the grime and keeping the oceans clean. The Vashta Narada acts in a similar way, going around.
And the sharks will usually leave you alone. If you leave their food source alone,
exactly,
they'll leave you alone.
You don't look like a seal.
Yeah, that's right. In actual fact, John Dorney says that part of his inspiration for one of the characters, Amanda Steele, was based on a character from Jaws, which was Quinn, which was the guy in charge of the boat who took the boat out and was the shark hunter. So that was his basis for Steele, played by Pam Ferris in this one.
Yep. So you can often see classic movie undertones. A lot of John Donnie's work. He does go for the classic movies and rework them slightly in certain scenes. You go, oh, that's very similar. But it's sort of a homage to the Silence of the Library too.
It also had me sidetracked on something else. There was a line that the Fourth Doctor said in this. He says, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not quite the same. And I thought, and the way he said it, it sounded to me like a music quote.
It is.
And it's the Foo Fighters, The Pretender.
Yep.
Are you agreeing with me?
I am.
Right. It's not the exact words. It's not the exact words. I went and looked at the video. I watched the great video clip, actually. So look it up, guys. Foo Fighters, The Pretender. But yeah, John always, not always, he often throws in these little pop culture references too, as little extra tidbits for people to discover and sort of get distracted by, which I was.
Well, the thing I wondered about, because it's also a song on Play School, which is those words exactly. One of these things is not like the other. One of these, which is a game that gets played on an ABC kids program called Play School, which I think the UK have a version of Play School. Our American listeners probably don't have that, but yeah, it's that children's program, and there's actually a song which is those words exactly. Which I guess John Donnie is half Australian, so he may have known it from Play School, but yeah, I do know Foo Fighters also use the similar lyrics as well.
Yeah, but not word for word. I discovered that.
No, but I think you will find word for word to the Play School version.
Right. Well, that could be an extra reference that you're letting me in on for the first time. So, yeah, great. Tom Baker was great in this. I don't know, how long ago was it was recorded? About 2016, something like that. So it was probably 2015 it was recorded. Perhaps.
No, so it came out July 2017, so it was almost 6 years ago. It was recorded the November before that, in 2016.
Okay. So in the extras, they're talking about the new series has been around for 10 years now, and I'm thinking, wow, it's been nearly 20 years now. So time is marching on.
It really is. So
give me your impression of the story, this particular story overall.
Well,
as a new monster, how does the Vashta Narada sit with you?
So my memory of it the first time was it didn't work particularly well. This time I was paying a bit more attention because I was focusing, taking some notes. I really enjoyed it. I like the way it's built up slowly. Tom Baker is unbelievably good. I think the way the cast works together, the build-up of tension, the way cast members get removed based on their powers and what's actually most important first is interesting. So the psychic who can kind of communicate with them is the first to die. Then the creature. So it's almost a reverse of what they have to offer. And so the ones actually you think would last the longest are the ones who end up going first. And so it's actually quite tragic. It's a bit of Horror Fang Rock in lots of ways in terms of a cast of characters, none of whom are overly redeeming, except for the nice one they kill off first. And then so you just see this cast of characters slowly being wiped out one by one as the tension grows. So I found this engaging the whole time through. I loved the way the Vashta Narada were a real threat. That they were cunning and sneaky in terms of how they did things. There's sort of that scene from Jurassic Park where they're preparing to fight the Vashta Narada on one front, another half they come around behind them and circled them. You know, you clever girl scene from Jurassic Park. Then that's half gone somewhere else. So there's a cunningness towards them all, and they're made to be a bit more terrifying too because they've now got a taste for humans, which is like that. What's the Lion horror film where the lions? Because they're sort of people eat some dead human beings and get a taste for humans.
The Ghost in the Darkness.
Yes, The Ghost in the Darkness. Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's, as I said, I can see all these bits of, and as I said, Jaws was there too in terms of the hunting trip, the party, and they hunt anything. I can see all these little references. It feels to me like John Donnie's been drawing from to create this picture and this whole tableau of story. And yeah, I was engaged. But obviously, you weren't as impressed. So, what were your
I
issues,
appreciate
Dwayne?
all the elements of the story. I just think So I find myself comparing these stories to the television stories. So if we've got classic Doctors, new monsters, what is it about the new monsters that made them classic enough to be able to put into a box set and make something extra about them? And what made that story good? Because it was one of the best stories of the season, Silence in the Library. It was the characters. So it was the River Song introduction story. So we're trying to work out who River Song was. We've got the team, which has got Steve Pemberton from League of Gentlemen in the cast, and we've got the computer system that's saving people. All those different elements, and the Vashta Nerada were there as a sort of a sideline threat. They weren't actually the full-on threat. And when they did consume somebody, they actually animated the corpse, and there was, you had the visual of the skeleton walking in the spacesuit, and that made that particular story really scary. So I was a little bit disconnected from the Vashta Nerada from the TV series as opposed to these ones here. I just don't feel that there's enough depth to these monsters. Okay, well, they're just killer insects, yeah? So I just don't find them that interesting, if that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying. I do disagree because, as I said, I don't think John Donne wasn't in any way trying to replicate Silence of the Library, which is a masterpiece in its own right and had its own it had a lot of agendas to achieve. Because you've got the whole parallel story with Donna, you've got River Song, so you've got a whole heap of things.
All I'm saying is it wasn't the Vashta Nerada that made that story good. It was all the other elements combined with the Vashta Nerada that made that story good.
But that's what I think. So in this story, it is the Vashta Nerada that makes the story good. Because this is now a group of people who think they're experts, who think they're hunters, who are now becoming the hunted. And so it's a question of how do you survive against an enemy you can't see? How do you survive in the dark? So it's taking primordial human fears and realizing them in a really powerful way on a soundscape. So yeah, to me, as I said, it's not trying to be Silence of the Library in any way, but in terms of a monster, a creature in the darkness hunting you, where you think you're hunting it, I thought it ticked all the boxes for me. The casting was brilliant, the music was great, and listening to the extras afterwards, hearing that some of those landscapes was actually mating rituals of spiders. Oh, that's the next one, I think. Oh, forget which one it was.
It is the next one.
Next one.
Yeah, I picked up on that too.
That's a bizarre soundscape to have, but there you go. No, I loved it. It was great.
Okay. Let's move on then to Empire of the Arachnos. That's the second story in the box set with a fifth Doctor, Peter Davison, featuring, of course, the Arachnos, Empress of the Arachnos, played by Adjoa Ando, and another Arachnos played by Nigel Planer. Andrew French is in the cast, and Lisa Kay. So a small cast. But can I just get this out of the way first? I will probably never listen to this story again. I find it so irritating. The Arachnos, that's why I was sort of going, I know what the Arachnos sounds like, and it's very talky, this one. See, in The Runaway Bride, the Arachnos came in towards the end. There was a lot of character stuff with Donna and the Doctor, and the Arachnos was just there, and it's an over-the-top, pantomime Christmas special monster. It's not a classic Doctor Who monster at all. And I just find listening to... Don't get me wrong, I think the actors did a great job in recreating what we originally had on the TV series. It was fantastic. And then getting into the extras and learning about the story and what Scott Hancock did with taking that classic story and turning it into this was very clever. But I just find it so grating and so irritating. Oh, by the way, I like what the sound designer did too. I thought that was very interesting. But the actual voices themselves, I couldn't stand it myself. Now, that's out of the way. You need to talk.
Well, as you know, I'm not a big fan of animals being characters in Doctor Who stories. And so, I always struggle with those sort of things. But once again, I think Adjoa's performance, am I saying her name correctly?
Adjoa.
So she's Martha's mum on the TV series. I'm watching at the moment in Queen Charlotte, and what's the
Bridgerton? Is she?
Bridgerton? Yeah, she's in Bridgerton, and she's amazing. Like I'm very very late to Bridgerton. I've only just discovered in the last month or two. If we're doing recommendations, I might actually recommend Bridgerton because wow, it's been good. She's amazing in that. She's just the most astounding actress, and once again, I think her performance here is brilliant. The play Medea is actually a pretty impressive work, and I remember being horrified by seeing it on stage. The City Theatre Company did it years ago, and there was so much blood and so much death, and it's one of the most miserable, depressing plays ever. And so it was interesting seeing Scott Hancock reproduce
one of his favourites.
Yeah, it's a classic work, and there's certain pieces of work which are just painful to partake in, but you need to because
like
it's part of the canon. Okay. Well, anyhow, I enjoyed the interplay between the characters, the politics. I had forgotten some of the twists towards the end in terms of who was bad and who was good. And so there was a couple of surprises in there that I'd forgotten about, which was nice. I do think the performances were great. I do think the companion, I think Peter Davis was great. Like, he really played the Doctor really well. And his part-time companion in this, the Gallifreyan, I think she was pretty great too. And they leave together, but I'm not sure everything ever is made of that again. Because the two of them travel off together.
Right.
And it's a Nigel Planet I know from the young ones from when I was at school. So once again, I enjoyed it. Sorry, I thought it was, yeah.
You don't have to apologise for enjoying it, but I have to be honest and say this, like you're saying that they left together at the end. I wasn't hearing anything by the end because my ears were bleeding.
Oh, it wasn't that bad, boy.
It was.
Oh, see, I'm usually the first to complain about awful voices and going over the top, but for me, I could cope quite well. It was more in how they emphasise words and sentences more than. Well, anyhow, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and it was nice seeing Medea done in a Doctor Who way.
There you go. First time ever, I think.
Kiddies at home, go and read Medea now, but it's pretty gory, so be prepared for lots of death.
Yeah, and the actual sound effects were a recording of spiders with lots of reverb added. So I found that very interesting.
Yes, well, having done that spider display we went to when I was down with Hobart, the what's the gallery? MoMA?
Mona.
Pardon?
Mona.
So yes, when you took me to the art gallery in Tassie, and there's a whole spider display there, which Gary Russell would have loved. Yes, I've learnt more about spiders in one afternoon than I've learnt for years and years. So yes, there was some interesting spider stuff in this story, which I enjoyed as well. But apparently you'll never listen to it again, but I shall because I enjoyed it.
No, I don't think I seriously think I would skip it. If I ever went back to this box set, I would definitely skip it. All right, shall we move on to the next one?
Sounds like a great idea. I hope you like this one a bit.
Well.
No, okay.
This is the Carrionite Curse, and I went from one screechy, whiny monster, and I was thinking, I remember the witches. We got witches for the next hour with the Sixth Doctor. I thought, how am I going to deal with this? And I went into it with very trepidatious going into this one after listening to the Rachnos one. But I was very pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed this one much more than I anticipated. And it's set, when is it set?
1980s.
Present time?
Oh,
that's right. No, it is 1980s because she comments on his outfit being too garish even for the 1980s.
Yeah, and he talks about when you get the internet in the future.
Yeah, so and it's set a long time after the events of the Globe, which is interesting because it's a sequel for the Carrionites to the Globe story, but a prequel for the Doctor. So I thought that was interesting the way they did that. And I think this is because they're a creature who wields their power by use of words. This is perfect to pair with the Sixth Doctor, and particularly Colin Baker. Is it the Sixth Doctor or is it Colin Baker, or is it a combination of the two? He loves his words,
yes.
And I think this suited him perfectly. I just love listening to him dealing with all that dialogue.
Good. Well, we agree there then. I think the Carronites work perfectly for the Sixth Doctor. They're aliens of words, And I love it when he starts talking short little words, the power of little words. So there's a lot of conversation. And Simon Guerrier is always a master wordsmith. And the reason why I love his companion chronicles so much is because he just uses language in such an erudite, beautiful way. And this has it has a scene of using big, long, complicated words, and then they look at the beauty of little words. And so then Colin starts spouting off beautiful little words, unusual little words. It was actually quite a sad concept. I think they sort of kill off 3 characters early on, and then the witches survive, but the humans are dead, which I thought was pretty tragic. And there's a bit of a tragic end to it all as well. But I think it works well in the vein. Essentially, of the 4 stories, this would be my least favourite of the 4. But once again, lots of really good things in it. And yeah, Colin is just superb. It's a good reason why he's become my favourite Big Finish Doctor, I think, most of the time.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic stuff. Different sound designer. It's noting Howard Carter here as sound designer, so they must have had different sound designers for the different stories. Once again, I'm looking at TARDIS Wiki because
I was wondering what you're looking at, because not the website, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, looking at TARDIS Wiki just to try and split those cast lists.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And it redeemed the set after the previous story, shall I say.
But so if you watch the Shakespeare Code as well, there was a lot to get out of it to link with the Shakespeare Codes. The destruction of the globe, you've got the 14-sided room, you've got lots of really special moments that I think link very nicely. Because I love the Shakespeare Code. It's one of the new series ones I've seen the most often, because I used to teach a unit on Shakespeare to my kids, and I used to always show them the Shakespeare Code as part of the unit, because any excuse to show Doctor Who, let's face it. But there's lots of good stuff in there to actually give them an idea of the time and Shakespeare. I mean, it's not really Shakespeare, but to give them an idea of the time, the Globe Theatre, how theatre worked. There's a lot of good stuff to talk through. So I used to always show that episode to my class. So I love that episode, and this is a nice sequel come prequel to it.
Lots of references to Lightfoot as well.
Yes,
Jago and Lightfoot. So there's a book that one of the characters has. He's a fan of Lightfoot's book, and that gets lost, and then the Doctor gets a replacement book that's a signed copy, and so that's a nice little couple of scenes as well. So I'm looking at the cover too. All the individual covers in this one. I like the way Big Finish did individual covers with the box sets in those days. Do they still do it a little bit now, but not with every set, I've noticed.
No, it's much more expensive to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, but really nice individual covers on this one. All right, shall we move on to the final one?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, the last story is called Day of the Vashta Narada, and it's that's another great cover too. 8th Doctor story, featuring Cardinal Illustra on the cover as well, played by the incredible Jacqueline Pearce. And as I was listening to this, her voice, I could just listen to her voice all day long, Philip.
Okay, well, I must confess, to me, the highlight of this, and it made me both happy and sad, was Jacqueline Pearce. That character of Illustra that was written for her for the War Doctor series, because Jacqueline Pearce and William Hurt were very good friends. And so when they knew they were bringing William Hurt in to do a box set,
Do you mean John Hurt?
John Hurt. Oh, who's William Hurt? Anyhow,
Different actor altogether.
John Hurt. When they knew they were bringing John Hurt in to play the War Doctor, they specifically wrote a part for Jacqueline Pearce because they knew they were good friends, they'd get on well together. And so Illustra was created. And she's a wonderful Time Lord. And yeah, it's losing Jacqueline Pearce actually meant, I know Illustra still exists. We're using a regeneration of her now, but no one can play Illustra like Jacqueline Pearce. And it's interesting because she's not like Servalan. She's sinister. She's cold. She's war-minded, but she's still so different. And it really is interesting just listening to. Yeah, as I said, for me, just listening to this, I was listening to this today. It just made me both smile and sad at the amazing performance Jacqueline gives, and her and Paul McGann together, the way they spar off each other.
They're great.
Oh, it is just classic. Because he's so even and patient, and she's not evil. She's such a complex character, but just cold-hearted, I guess. Yeah, because no, she's not unthinking. It's yeah, the way she plays is wonderful, and the two of them together just spar off each other. No love lost, and yet there's still obvious respect there. She wants him on her side as part of the battle because this is during the early days of the Time War, and she's ruthless to use any method possible to defeat the enemy, and she just can't get him. She can't understand what he's coming from, and so you have a few very powerful scenes between the two of them, and then the other characters come in to help them spar off each other.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's based on the Siege once again. It's almost like Aliens 2, in terms of it's not quite the same as being hunted, but you've now got different sorts of creatures. No, it's more like bugs. Starship Troopers, isn't it? I think where they've got different sorts of aliens are now attacking because you've now got a giant Vashta Nerada, and you've got the
negative,
so the ones
the Narada Vashta.
Yes, so only light, no darkness. So there's some nice, clever little twists to play on because I think there's a brave move having two Vashta Nerada episodes in the one box set, but I think they try to do very different things. I think because it's worked so well, because this is much more being hunted by different sorts of creatures. But there's some lovely moments just to talk about the Staser when the Doctor, is about one of the creatures about to shoot the Doctor, and he realizes that they're inside the gun because there's no light inside the gun. And he describes it like oil leaking out of the gun when he puts the gun down. And so it's some beautiful descriptions where you actually really can envisage what's going on. So I think Matt's done a really good job of that and just creating this vision of, once again, bit by bit being wiped out. And it's again, very tragic.
I actually found myself connecting with this a lot more than I did the first Vashta Nerada story for some reason. I was able to visualize this a lot better. I don't know, maybe the sounds were different, or maybe the sounds of the different types of, they had the big one looming around, so that was different sounds again. But, or perhaps it was just the chemistry between the Eighth Doctor and Illustra that really had me going all the way. So, yeah, it's hard to say, but I really, really enjoyed this one. And did you notice the theme music? It was the proper Eighth Doctor theme music, so it was set before, it was probably released before the Eighth Doctor Time War sets, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually, this may have. Oh, I don't know now. That's a good question.
Around the same time?
Yes, it was all sort of kicking off about this time, I think. So this was a couple of months before the first Paul McGann Time War series came out, which was October 2017, and this is July. So this is one of the first stories we see. I think there may have been one or two other one-off adventures with Paul McGann in the Time War before this. But in terms of the Time War box set about to start, this is a couple of months before that first box set is released.
As a box set, I'm glad I've got this. But as I said, only that one little blemish for me, although a couple of blemishes really, because I don't really like the Vashta Nerada that much. But I think the stories involving the Vashta Nerada in this sets are great. But yeah, Empire of the Arachnos, I can leave that one. I'll listen to all the others. But I would definitely give it a thumbs up for the 3 out of 4 for me.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very great choice to have Barnaby Edwards direct these 4. I think they have great roots to classic films, classic theatre, classic works. And so I think Barnaby Edwards was the ideal choice as a director because of his theatre roots, these traditional roots like that. I think he's cast amazingly well. They're not, once again, not a cast I'm overly familiar with. Well, so there's some huge names in there, and there are lots of people that I just don't know, but just solid voices and sounds. And I think I've really enjoyed it, like much more than I was expecting, and had a great time listening to these 4 stories. So yeah, I recommend all of them, and I enjoyed more than Dwayne did. But yeah, maybe I had a better
4 out of 4 for you.
Yeah, 4 out of 4 for me. I think they're all hits. They all work.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Roddy, for choosing that one for us. We appreciate you being involved. I think on that note, it is time to discover what is going to be drawn from the TARDIS cookie jar for the next instalment of...
We've got Randomoids.
Where's your little yelp? Oh, thank you. All right, let me just get it. And do you remember the rule?
If you pick out a box set, we just stick with it. If it's not a box set, you pick a second one.
All right, here we go.
Oh, Cobwebs.
Okay, so we've got one story, so we get to pick another.
That's the Fifth Doctor, and then it's the old Nissa, Sarah Sutton and Janet Fielding.
So Cobwebs was chosen for us by Teresa.
Oh, okay.
We know Teresa very well from our recent live events. What's the second one?
The War Doctor Begins, He Who Fights with Monsters. That's a box set.
Box set, so we can't choose that one.
Okay.
So, in other words, you get to choose a surprise pick for me. So we're going Cobwebs and one other that's a single story that you choose for me.
Okay, I'm going to pick a 10th Doctor story because we have never done a 10th Doctor story on Randomoids, I don't think. And so I am going to choose Doctor Who, Death and the Queen. So it's a David Tennant story and Donna Noble. I remember when this came out really enjoying it and thinking there was some very clever stuff for Donna to do because she had a very large role. But I can't really remember more than that. And so I'm curious to hear it again. It came out a long time ago. Well, relatively.
It has to be a long time ago because I've got the physical copy above my head.
2016. So this is earlier than the one we just listened to. So 2016 this came out. So yeah, so this was one of the. I think this may be the first set of 10th Doctors that came out. I forget. Maybe not. I'll do some research before next time. And yeah, so let's do Death and the Queen.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Philip. Next time it's my turn. You better look forward to that.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm waiting in anticipation now.
Oh, yeah, I know. All right. And since Cobwebs was chosen by Teresa actually sent us some audio feedback.
Did she?
From the day event. I think after Sophie's event, she sent some feedback through, so I might throw it in here. This is from Teresa.
Hi, Dwayne. It's Teresa. Thank you so much for organising the Janet and Sophie Aldred meetup. It was lovely to meet both of them. Had a lovely chat. Had a great opportunity to ask them questions. It was great. Can't wait to meet more Doctor Who stars, especially from the classic era. Thanks, Dwayne and Philip.
What a lovely lady is our Teresa.
She is indeed.
A very large presence at our events. So I wouldn't want to have an event without her there. She's fantastic.
That's for sure. In fact, can I just, this is coming out this week, be watching socials next week because there will be an announcement about another event coming up and another guest. So we'll release something.
Not going to spill the beans yet?
No, I want it here. I'll do it on the socials. So expect a posting next week. During the week.
So keep your eye on it. Our handle is @AudioSirens on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. That is where you will hear the announcement of our next live event in... Well, it'll be at least in Sydney.
Sydney and... Actually, we can say Sydney and Melbourne.
Sydney and Melbourne. Excellent.
Yeah, we're going to go to Melbourne this time because our Victorian fans have supported us a great deal. And so...
Quite a few have even come up.
So with the guest, as I said, I'd really like to go to Melbourne, and the guest said, I'd love to go to Melbourne too and see all the fans down there as well. So Melbourne people, we're coming to you as well as Sydney.
And we're not going to do any recommendations this week because we've recommended the box set. But it's July now, Philip. Where did that half of the year go?
I can't believe it. It's very depressing.
Stick around this coming month. We've got some great episodes too. Next week, we've got Beth Chalmers. We've got an in-depth interview with her. Following that, we've got Glenn McCready joining us. And we've got some great stuff coming up for the rest of the month too. So looking forward to sharing all that with you.
Fantastic. Can't wait to.
So until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio, episode 160. Randomoids 22, featuring our review of Classic Doctors New Monsters Volume 2, with your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Original theme music composed by Joe Kramer. Our website is sirensofaudio.com. Comment below to let us know what you thought of the episode, or contact us via email at sirensofaudio@gmail.com or any one of our socials. And, like Teresa, you can even send us an audio clip. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.